It has been a journey, but at long last, we are testing the last of the Archer KVK skins, and that is Flight of the Heron. And today, we're going to be comparing it to Topkapi Palace and Twilight Falls to let you know what is the best Archer skin in Rise of Kingdoms. Join me to find out more. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another Rise of Kingdoms gameplay episode from your very own Shappy Gaming. Today, we are going to be evaluating the Topkapi Palace and the Flight of the Heron city skin alongside the Twilight Falls city skin to find out what is the best city skin you should be using in Rise of Kingdoms. So, this is predominantly for archers and obviously does not include the Zenith skins because for 99% of players, that's completely unattainable. Now, that said, let's take a look at the buffs that you're going to get from these skins, and I will speculate as to which I think is going to be the most valuable across the board. So, first of all, you get Flight of the Heron, and you get archer attack of plus 10% and infantry attack minus 10%. Honestly, not really a terrible debuff, minus 10% infantry attack. Typically, if you're going to debuff anything, you do want it to be your attack. So I'm not too concerned about this. The other thing is that in KVK, you get a lot more attack and you get like no defense or health. So this is fine to me. But okay, let's see what we can find for Topkapi Palace. Here you're getting archer defense and you're losing troop attack of 3% holistically. You're also getting that action point recovery. Honestly, I like these buffs better, and I also like that this debuff isn't really that massive. You're talking about 3% troop attack across all your troop types, which does hurt a little bit because it's going to hurt more marches. But to be honest, 3% troop attack is really not very much. In fact, you can offset that just by popping a troop attack boost. So this is not bad as we talk about debuffs. I also like archer defense because the odds that your archers are going to get swarmed is pretty high just because the cavalry is kind of the meta right now in the field. Let me know in the comment section below if you disagree. But I do like that archer defense from a swarm standpoint. Now, the last thing that we need to look at here is Twilight Falls. And Twilight Falls is so far our reigning champion. That plus 5% skill damage is massive, and the infantry attack, and we discovered even in our infantry city theme testing, the infantry attack really doesn't hurt you that much because it all gets offset with that skill damage. Now, the other thing here is that plus 5% skill damage usually is pretty good. But let's think about the different archer commanders that we have in this game. If we go through, we have Zhuge Liang, massive skill damage, massive, in an AoE. You have Boudica, also massive skill damage. Even Gilgamesh, pretty big skill damage. Nebu, more skill damage. So skill damage is like a major thing for all of the different archer marches, YSG included. So that 5% skill damage is going to be a huge impact to them, and it's going to help the rest of your marches. So I have my suspicions, but let's actually get into the testing to see what the results were and give you some insight into kind of where we shook out with all this. So huge thanks to Minhee. She was very helpful in all this. She had all the city skins that I needed, so thank you. Now, what did we test? So we used 200k T5 units. To my dismay, this was an extremely expensive testing, so please drop a like below because my resources are hurting. But we used 200k T5 archers and cavalry. I used Nevsky Joan to remain consistent. That's the cavalry march I've used through all of the other city testing, so I wanted to make sure that we were consistent here. And then we did a naked testing. We did a testing with equipment, but without accessories because accessories add a lot of variation, and I didn't want to deal with that. And then we just did your testing of the city themes. And so we had a bunch of tests here, as you can see. Let's run through. I'll play them right above my head for you to watch them as we go through this. What did this all shake out to? So as you can see, this was our first battle. This was our baseline. What were we looking at here? I won, which is awesome. I would expect that cavalry should be archers. We used Zhuge Liang and YSG to 1, reduce variability, and 2, use a real-world march that you might be using in a murder ball. That also deals a ton of damage because we did want to see if that skill damage was going to come into play. He did have a relic on his YSG, which is worth calling out here. You get more skill damage buff from that because, again, archers never have enough skill damage. And here's just our base power there. I believe she is VIP 18, I'm VIP 17, so that really shouldn't make much difference when it comes to combat. And let's look at this report. So I won by a fair bit of margin too. So she took an extra 6,000 severely wounded than I did, which was great. And this was a report that I would kind of expect and hope for in the field. This March that I'm fighting should not be very tanky. It's kind of a glass cannon. And Nevsky Joan is tried and true and very consistent. So the expectation here in the naked testing is that I would win pretty consistently. And we did clear our commander tab. I did not have a city skin on. Neither did she. So it was very baseline, no formations either. So now let's take a look at our second report to see how things changed once we changed up the city skin. So this city skin was using Twilight Falls. Now, this was my expectation. I thought, okay, Twilight Falls is going to make a huge difference here. And if you look at the report, it did. And spoiler alert, you can see some victories and defeats above, so you know that that makes a big difference. Now, looking at this, how did things change? So I lost this one, for one, and I lost by a lot. So you see a difference of 5,000 severely wounded. That is almost a complete inverse of that first report, which is nuts to me. It's wild. And it's all because of this 5% skill damage buff. Now, why do I think this happened? Well, if we look at these skills here, you have an amazing amount of skill damage from Zhugliang. That's 2,000 damage factor. And then you have an amazing amount of skill damage from YSG. And you have the skill damage buff from YSG. And you have the relic skill damage buff from YSG. And that 5% additional skill damage makes a huge difference for these commanders. So I was surprised, and we'll see if this holds up across our other testing, but this really blew me away. I was not expecting it to be this dramatic. I don't think we've had any reports this dramatic so far, but there we go. So now that we've seen that Twilight Falls made a huge difference, what about the other city themes? So now let's take a look at the Flight of the Heron city theme to see how this held up, because as we already saw, Twilight Falls was absolutely spectacular, and this city theme is specifically built for archers. And what you'll see off the bat, because I can't seem to hide it, is the fact that I won this duel. And I lost the last one with Twilight Falls, and that's a pretty big deal. And if we go in here, you can see she does have an additional 10% archer attack, and that's the only difference here. And what we're really gleaning from this is that for these archer marches, having that extra skill damage is a big deal. More so than the 10% attack. Because you would expect that attack would have an impact on skill damage, and surely it does, but not to the same extent as that Twilight Falls city skin. The other thing is the Twilight Falls city skin has a better situation when it comes to debuffs for other marches. So I'm already seeing crazy results. If I'm seeing just these duels so far, I'm thinking, okay, I have to be running Twilight Falls, Chappie. Don't waste my time. I will not. So let's take a look now at the Topkapi Palace. We already did a testing of Topkapi Palace previously. If you want, you can check that out right over there on the top right side of your screen now. But I wanted to compare it against Flight of the Heron because I thought that would only be fair as we look at what the best archer marches are and what the best city skins are for them. So this one was crazy because I won, but I only just barely won. And if you look at the results here, I really traded just about even. So you can see I lost 243k power. She lost 244k power. Really, really close. Closer than the Flight of the Heron for sure. And I think that is because of the defense. Again, I think the defense is more valuable when we're talking about being in a murder ball, being in a situation where you might be targeted. So I do have a preference here, just speaking for myself. But I was actually surprised to see how close this was because typically, again, you would expect cavalry are going to win. Now, that said, I'm still not using a city skin in this duel, and I would not be for duels. However, in the real world, I might be using a city skin of my own that could make it so I will take this W no matter what. That said, if we're looking at Flight of the Heron versus Topkapi Palace, I am absolutely going Topkapi Palace for a couple reasons. One, the 6 coins is really not that big of a deal for me. I have 8 coins and I'm not buying KVK sets, so I don't need to use them on anything. So I would actually say Topkapi Palace is probably easier to have and use, but that's just my belief. I think that the Flight of the Heron, you're making a lot of trade-offs when you pick that city skin, just because of the fact that you have to buy that over gold heads or legendary materials. So, okay, we've now gone through all of our different testings without equipment. What happens when we throw some equipment in here? Does it make a difference? So here we are. Let's look at our first duel with equipment, and you can see immediately I got wrecked. And I'll pop up her equipment on the right side of the screen for you so you can see that yourself. But yeah, I got obliterated. It was not even a contest here. I took a lot more severely wounded, and part of that is that she has better equipment than I do, but the other part of it is that throwing equipment on this massive skill damage march does make a huge amount of difference. But this was our naked testing, so this is our baseline, and let's go through and actually see how this changes, right? That's what we're here to see. We want to see the impact. Skill damage here is 74%. Now, when we do make a change, we'll have to look upon that. But that said, you could see up here, spoiler alert, I didn't start winning duels dramatically, so that's to be expected. So which of these city skins actually did better once we added equipment? So looking at our first duel with a city skin, I believe this was Twilight Falls. Let's just double check here. We have, yep, skill damage of 79%. And once again, I got obliterated. I got obliterated really badly. I took 9,000 more severely wounded. Compared to this one, that hurts a lot. And this was just the changing of the city skin. So that skill damage really makes a huge amount of difference just looking at this already. And again, Twilight Falls is not built for archers. It just adds a lot of skill damage boost. And when you already have a bunch of other buffs, it makes a huge difference. And again, these are playing above my head. You could watch it for yourself. If it were real and this was a trade I got, I would be really happy with this report. It's not a 2-to-1, but it's pretty dang close. Okay, so Twilight Falls wrecked me. We still have the archer skin and Topkapi Palace. Did it make a difference? Are they better than Twilight Falls? Let me know in the comment section. Set the timestamp. I want to see if you're real. Okay, so here's Flight of the Heron. And yeah, spoiler alert, it made literally no difference. So if we look at our naked test versus our Flight of the Heron test, I actually did better in the Flight of the Heron test than I did in the naked test. So I think that gives you a pretty good insight here. Flight of the Heron is really not worth it. This is just using, basic testing, going back and forth, doing duels. I recognize duels are not always going to be how it is in combat, but they're a pretty good representation. I'm super underwhelmed with Flight of the Heron. Just looking at this, I would have expected this to be at least better than the naked testing. I understand there's some variability, but yeah. Guys, don't get Flight of the Heron. That's my recommendation. But we do have to finish, so let's take a look at Topkapi Palace and see if you are between Flight of the Heron and Topkapi Palace, which is going to be best for you. So here we go. This is Topkapi Palace, and honestly, it was pretty close to Twilight Falls. That said, I took just about the same amount of severely wounded. I took slightly more when they were using Twilight Falls, and more importantly, they took way less severely wounded, which is actually not what I would expect, because again, that defense buff is going to make a big difference. However, in this particular duel, the more skill damage that they're putting out, it means the less damage I can put out because I have fewer units. So, if you're wondering which KVK skin you should be using as an archer main, I think the answer is pretty clear. Twilight Falls is the way to go. Twilight Falls benefits all your other marches, but most importantly, if you're running archers, none of them have smite, and all of them deal a ton of skill damage. I would skip all of the archer skins, go for Twilight Falls. If you want to use Topkapi Palace, you can. I don't really think you should. If you've enjoyed, please be sure to hit that subscribe button right over there, bottom right-hand corner. Drop a like on this video. It helps me out a ton. And thank you all. Shappy out.